Welcome to Takeaway with Sam Okus, a podcast for leaders of growing restaurant companies looking to take their businesses to the next level. In nearly 2 decades covering restaurants, I've gained access to some of this industry's most influential decision makers, and I'm letting you in on the conversations. In today's episode, you'll hear from a major pizza chain's marketing chief about the keys to getting consumers' attention and securing their loyalty, plus how to change your brand without alienating your biggest fans. Kate Trumbull is Executive Vice President and Global Chief Marketing Officer at Domino's Pizza. I traveled to Domino's headquarters in Ann Arbor, Michigan last month to sit down with Kate and other executives as part of our just released brand icon package. And we're excited to offer this full interview with Kate, in which she and I talk about why Domino's takes some big swings in its marketing, how it crafts its voice in the social media age, and what went into that major brand refresh that the company announced earlier this month. Later this week, you will hear from Domino's CEO Russell Weiner about his 17-year tenure at the brand, which included what could be the most incredible brand transformation in retail history. And you can get our entire brand icon package powered by our friends at the Coca-Cola Company over at nrn.com. Jumping now into my interview with Domino's CMO, Kate Trumbull. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 5 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, I'm sitting down with Kate Trumbull, the Global CMO for Domino's Pizza. Kate, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Kate, I want to talk first about your career at Domino's, because you've been here almost 14 years. Which feels like forever for a company that goes through so many cycles of change and marketing. But before you joined Domino's, you joined right after a huge campaign that Domino's did, the New and Improved campaign. What was your impression of Domino's before you came into this company?
Well, before I came into the company, before the New and Inspired campaign, I didn't think much of Domino's. You know, I grew up in Indiana, it wasn't a big brand. Actually ordered Papa John's a lot, Donato's. Those were my younger days. I'm much wiser now.
You've learned.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
But you know, the New and Inspired campaign happened and you couldn't ignore that. Everyone saw it. I was blown away by it. Couldn't believe the audacity of the brand to come out and really challenge and criticize their product so transparently and honestly. And so I was intrigued. I interviewed with Russell Weiner, who was the CMO at the time and is now CEO. And you know, I just saw so much potential. It was just the beginning of really a transformation for the brand that I've been lucky enough to be part of since then.
Yeah, well, and let's start with New and Improved, because there might be books written about it. If not, there should be. Because an incredible lesson in how to be open, honest, transparent, and for that to ultimately pay off. An incredible turnaround that Domino's makes really starting around then. Now, I don't think it was at the time the biggest pizza chain in the world. Now it is. I mean, that was one of the catalysts, I think, that helped to get it there. That campaign, though, what has that taught you that you've brought with you into your marketing roles at Domino's? What did you learn out of that you guys still keep at the heart of who the brand is?
I think what I learned is it's all about consumer tensions. You have to understand what's the tension happening for consumers, what's the tension potentially in the category and culture. At that time, people didn't trust government. Things were falling apart. The banks were not to be trusted, and people, you know, they just didn't believe in anything. And for us to come through and be really honest that our product sucked, it just cut through the tension. And we resolved it with a superior product. So if you're willing to lean in with attention and you take action that actually resolves the tension, that was a huge learning for me. And as a marketer, if you're not doing something that you feel the nerves and you feel is risky, then you're not pushing the brand in a big enough way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it set the bar kind of high? Do you feel like you're trying to play that? Okay. I can't imagine trying to beat that.
It was intimidating to come into a start like that. But at the same time, you know, that was the product. There was so much else that needed to be improved. And so when you have the culture and the ethos that we have here at Domino's, we're a work in progress brand. We're always looking for how we can get better, how we can best ourselves. We have a very competitive group of franchisees out in our system and a very competitive group of people who work here. It's all about what's next. You know, maybe it's an e-com platform that needs to be improved. Maybe it's we didn't have a loyalty program at the time. So that was just, you know, the beginning, and it's been really fun to see us take on tensions and resolve them with real actions over the years.
So much of a marketer's job is controlling the narrative, right? Control is impossible with social media though, right? So considering how many different platforms, those hundreds of thousands, if not millions of influencers out there, how can you control that narrative of Domino's Pizza that's out there in the zeitgeist?
Yeah, you can't. And I think the more you fight against it and try to control it, the more it feels forced and inauthentic. So I think you have to know who you are as a brand, and you have to bring innovation that consumers care about, and then they'll talk about you in all the ways you want them to talk about you. We saw that with Emergency Pizza, right? That was one of those things that was a BOGO. We really framed it in an insight that people were going through a lot, right? A lot of pressure economically, and we came through and said, you know, we have an emergency pizza for when you need it most. And consumers took it that way. You know, they talked about it that way. And so, you know, you have to trust, you have to put the right innovations out there and let consumers get excited about your brand in the ways they see it most interesting.
So lucky for you guys, I think, is Domino's, to me, and I'm sure most everybody else, is fun. It's quirky, it's irreverent, doesn't take itself too seriously. That plays really well on social, right? So how do you lean into that? How do you develop a voice for Domino's Pizza today that can maintain that kind of personality, I guess?
Yeah, it's all about the brand personality and tone. And we joke a lot about the idea that a brand on social has a different level of drinking, if you will. So you might have like, maybe you have a beer on Instagram, but you might have 2 beers on TikTok, right? Like you can go a little bit further. And in fact, you don't want to feel polished because you'll stand out like a sore thumb on TikTok. So we're always there trying to, you know, be clever, you know, surprise. It's always about being unexpected and surprising consumers. Even on TikTok, we were coming out with our best deal ever, our $9.99 deal where you can get whatever you want, whatever crust, unlimited toppings, you know, exactly what consumers wanted. And when we launched it on TikTok, we actually framed it to look like the copy that was used for the TikTok ban, and people were so freaked out. And they were like, oh my gosh, Domino's, you totally freaked me out. But it was thumb-stopping, it was interesting, it was eye-catching, and I think that's what you have to do. You have to keep surprising and being unexpected and just being in the shoes of your consumer and what's gonna, you know, break through to them.
That's right. So just drilling into that value piece of it and just where we are right now today, how important is that value piece to keeping things churning for Domino's? Make sure your loyal customers are still turning to Domino's when they want pizza.
Yeah, we're really pleased. We've seen recent traffic numbers and they're incredibly strong. And I think that's because we're continuing to give value when consumers need it most. And they need it. You said it, they're shopping outside the home, but they're going to grocery. They're making really tough calls, and we have to earn that value. And most recently, we launched a campaign with our mix and match deal, right? It's, you know, buy 2 medium, 2 topping pizzas for $6.99 each. We compared that to what you can get from $6.99 across QSR, right? Maybe you can get a burger, maybe you can get a burrito. But when you cut that into 8, like a pizza, you're not getting very much. And so kind of turning that value on its head and saying, look at what pizza can give you. You can get 8 slices instead of 8 little pieces, right? It's creating the metaphor or analogy that consumers need to see that with Domino's, they're gonna get the best value and they're gonna get quantity and abundant value. And consumers are doing the math, right? They're willing to spend, but they've gotta get great service. It has to be delicious, it has to be accurate, and it has to be able to feed their family or the groups that they're including in an occasion.
Right. You mentioned loyalty a bit ago, and I'm sure loyalty, obviously, now more than ever, I mean, it's a part of that value equation, right? How are you using that as a lever here in the midst of a difficult economy, in the midst of every restaurant is really fighting for traffic? How important does that loyalty piece of this become, and how are you using it?
Yeah, it's incredibly important to have a loyalty program that is, you know, connected to what consumers really want. We launched ours back in 2015. It's been a long time, and that was when our business was much bigger in delivery. And so it was a designed program for delivery. As carryout has grown, a couple years ago, we revamped our loyalty program. Most companies, especially the airlines, right, they have to revamp their programs because they're giving too much value out. And they revamped the program, and you feel like it's not as good as it once was. Our goal was to make sure the program was as good or better, and we were able to deliver on that. So instead of having to spend $10 to get points, you only have to spend $5, which made it more approachable and accessible to carry out consumers. So that was one of the things we did. Before, you had to order 6 times to get a free pizza. Now you order twice and you can get something for free. And so we had tiers that are much more accessible. So we made the major changes to the program to make it, all in all better for the consumer. And it turns out that drove more engagement with the program.
Yep.
We're at 37 million in loyalty active members today.
Wow.
It's a huge program, and we continue to focus on not only the base program, right, but also everything we do. When we launch something like Parmesan stuffed crust or New York style, we make sure there's a perk related to that product. So people who've never tried it, who are interested in it, they get a chance with their points to get more value. So it's making sure you're just always bringing new, interesting pieces to the program, and we're leveraging a lot more personalization in the program. So you may like dessert, you may not. We don't want to give you dessert if that's not something that is meaningful to you. But the more we test, and we're always testing, we're always so data driven, the more we're figuring out the things that really drive more frequency and trial over time. So we're always going to be out trying to be the most affordable brand, but also have consumers think of us as the most delicious brand. Our loyalty program is kind of a platform to do both of those things.
Yeah. Well, to that end, I mean, data, like the amount of data you collect from a loyalty program is incredible. If you think of 37 million consumers, the data points you have are insane. But that also allows you to be so much more targeted in your approach to communicating with these customers, right? I mean, you mentioned personalization. How do you lean into data to really target that marketing approach? Because if you look at TikTok, you might think, oh, well, they're just doing a silly video. But I imagine you guys have data points that show you how these things can work. So what does that look like using that data?
Yeah, I mean, you consumer touch points are everywhere, right? Whether it's from an email to a text to a push, or you're on our site, navigating, or you're in your My Deals and Rewards. And so how we show up in your user experience, what you get offered as an upsell is part of the personalization journey that is really exciting. What we put as a perk in your wallet based on what we know about you, based on lookalikes, what we know the most valuable next best action for you in your journey. Maybe you're part of our email program, but you haven't downloaded our app yet. So those are the kinds of things that we're just trying to. We know we want consumers to be incredibly loyal and ordering from us whenever they order pizza. And maybe that's 20 or 30 occasions a year. We want all of them. We want at least one more. So it's how are we using that data to understand where you are in the journey? How are we using gamification? How are we partnering with others in the space, in the payment space, to pull the friction out of the experience? Even our e-com experience, like we've done a ton of research and work on that just to optimize it, not only to make it more delicious, to make it be less friction, to make it be more personalized and intuitive. And so those are all the different places that we can show up more personalized to consumers.
Yeah, I can't think of another restaurant company where the access to the product is just as important as the product itself.
Yeah.
So much of Domino's marketing has been around the ordering process, the pizza tracker, the vehicles that are bringing the pizza, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously pizza delivery is your bread and butter. This is what you guys do and have done for a long, long time. Considering that, how much in your marketing are you trying to remind customers how just easy it is to get pizza, and how much are you communicating with your tech team on making sure you guys are kind of working together on developing the right message around those access points and how easy it is to get the pizza?
Yeah, we're in lockstep with our tech team. It's like the perfect partnership. And again, we share the consumer research. We do usability testing. We're always just trying to get better and better. I mentioned we're a work in progress brand, and that's in every part of the business. So, but it's a rich part of our heritage, delivery innovation, right? From inventing delivery to the heat wave bag, to card toppers, to the tracker, it's always been what we do. So, we look at opportunities to message that where it makes sense. We've had several windows over the last few years that talk about Domino's tracker. It's something people love. It's really important to consumers to know when they're getting their pizza, they're hungry, they want to plan around it. As a delivery consumer, you want the freedom to go give your kids a bath, to go walk your dog. You want to know exactly when your pizza is going to get there. And so We've also worked on updating and improving our tracker and making it more accurate from a timing perspective, but also giving more details that are really relevant to the consumer to make sure they have that sense of control.
Sure.
So whether it's talking about that, whether, we talked about hotspots at one point, where we're gonna let you get your delivery if you're at the beach, you're at the park, wherever you are. We just want to make it as easy as possible for families and individuals to get pizza, and use technology to facilitate that.
Okay, we've got to get into the big news.
Okay.
Because you guys have just announced this brand refresh,
Yeah.
which is exciting. I mean, it's I think a long time coming, right? This is the first time, really, since 2012 that you guys
Yeah.
have significantly refreshed the brand. Give me the scope of what this all includes.
Yeah, we've seen an opportunity for a while now, as we've embarked on Hungry for More and wanting to be known as the most delicious pizza and the most craved pizza. We knew we had a lot of products that people craved, but we knew the way we were showing up to consumers, we could come across more craveable, right? So we've been at this, working on this for a few years now, with the way we film our food. We've found partners that we think bring it to life in a much more delicious way. But our big relaunch right now is, I'd say the biggest news, other than new colors and new type fonts and new voiceover, new music, is that for the first time in history, we're gonna have a jingle. And the consumers call it a jingle, we call it a mnemonic, but we really found the most epic brands have a sound that helps them kind of stick in consumers' minds and be associated with something really powerful. And we learned, Domino's, you can't say Domino's without saying, You really can't,
Yeah.
right? And as a global brand, there is literally nothing that's more universal in language than the sound of Even a baby can say So our new jingle, our new crave mark, as we're calling it, when it's static, is Domino's, right? So we've partnered with recording artist and country music star Shabuzi, and he has such a beautiful, rich voice and personality that really brings it to life. And so, we're super excited about this launch. We've also refreshed our colors. As we found that food had to be the center of our marketing strategy, the blue and red we were using wasn't really bringing the energy to the food we needed it to. And so, of course, we did consumer testing. We really found that just the personality of our brand, the funness of our brand, the vibration, the energy comes to life with the new colors, the new typography, Domino's Sans. It's a more bold, it has more personality, it's more confident. It almost got inspired by the dough in our stores. It's got softer edges. And it's so good. It's right for billboards in your hometown to billboards in Times Square and across our e-commerce. And our e-commerce site has been completely revamped. Our tracker has been revamped in this new strategy and look and feel. So it's literally every single touch point. We listened to 600 voiceover artists and we narrowed it down, and we found the perfect partner who he really drives craveability, modernity. He was really popular with teens, but also adults.
Yep.
So it's an exciting moment for the brand. We have such a strong brand where we've had such strong performance. A lot of brands kind of do a refresh when things aren't going well. That's not our situation. So to be in a position of strength and really coming and proactively improving the look and feel of our brand, making it more modern, but still connected to our heritage, has been really exciting.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're on the heels of another restaurant company that will go nameless for now, having done
No
something
one knows what
similar.
you're talking
Nobody
about,
knows what I'm
yeah.
talking about. Did something similar.
Yeah.
Perhaps a little bit more change than what Domino's has
Yeah.
done, but still reaction was very intense. And I'm wondering about your perspective on this, because regardless of if it's a big change or a little change is still hard for some people.
Yeah.
How do you go into a process like this, protecting the brand that loyal Domino's customers know and love, but also making sure that you're still able to push into the future? What's the right balance
Yeah, and
there?
I'll say that there is a tension. A lot of brands have done kind of big brand refreshes or changed their logos, and more often than not, there's criticism than there is positive support for it. But I think when it goes really wrong, you can tell that the consumer was not part of the conversation, or those who know the brand the most, whether it's consumers or franchisees or leaders who've been in the business a long time. There wasn't enough of those tough discussions and those conversations. And I think for us, research is everything, whether it's quant or qual. Super validating. The last 2 months, we've done a ton of qual, and I've sat in those qual groups. And whether it's light Domino's customers to heavy users, we're listening to everyone and seeing how they interpret what we're doing and making sure that it's a value add. And there were things we looked at for this brand refresh that we didn't end up doing because we listened to consumers. So, but again, we have a team. Our agency partners, we've been working together for more than 10 years combined. When you look back at our partnership, and we know the brand really well. We know what works. We listen to consumers, and you're allowed to take a little bit of risk. But with a brand that's 65 years old, there's a lot at stake.
Yeah,
you have to take it seriously. Yeah.
So considering the moment we're in right now, right? Again, economy's still pretty tough.
Yep.
Customers again pulling back on their spend, but I think that also creates maybe a deeper relationship to the brands they do choose. It's a unique moment to do a brand refresh. What do you hope this says about Domino's as a brand for the next phase going into the future?
Yeah, I feel like I want consumers to feel like we've got their backs. They can count on us in everything we do, from the technology to the operations. I want consumers to feel like it's a brand that they love, that we're fun and we are unexpected. And we think of things that bring them little moments of joy. I think about our new packaging, right? The brighter colors, the red and the blue that makes up our tile. I mean, we heard from consumers, they found that just fun and clever and thoughtful. And so if you're putting the extra effort into every single touch point, I think people, they value that. They notice it, they recognize it, even the subtle things. So, and I hope people take away that, we have every right to say Domino's, because we really have the most delicious food, we have the most craveable menu, and we never stop working to do better and innovate to deliver for them.
Yeah. All right, so this leads me into why we're here right now,
Yes.
which is we've given Domino's the Brand Icon Award. And as we say, the Brand Icon Award recognizes this crossroads of heritage and history with innovation and the future. Domino's really lives at that, right? Because obviously this heritage of being a leader in pizza delivery, but you guys are constantly innovating. So I'm curious from your perspective, considering that sort of crossroads, how do you respect the 65 years of history and heritage that Domino's has, and 65 years worth of customers falling in love with this brand, but still push it into the future, still try to push the envelope on what is possible for a global pizza company?
Yeah, I think that consumers have loved the brand over the years because we've taken bold action. We've done unexpected things. We've led. We've been leaders in the industry and outside of our industry. And I think that, coupled with the partnership with our franchisees, a lot of them have come up with some of these amazing ideas over the years. And so I think, our recipe for success, if there is such a thing, has been just listening to consumers, listening to franchisees, partnering with them, and then taking bold action. So I know we're going to continue to do that. That's just who we are. We say pizza sauce runs through our veins. It's a mindset, and it's we called ourselves a work in progress brand for so long. Like, we're never done. We wake up in the morning and it's, how can I make this better, whatever I work on, and how can we push the envelope, and how can we do this better and be the first to do this? I'd say now it's more of a hungry for more mindset with our hungry for more strategy. It's just like, it's never done, and it's exciting. And we want to take risks. We started as a company built of all entrepreneurs, these franchisees, and even in our corporate culture, it's about being entrepreneurial, taking risk, failing fast, learning fast. And I think that you're going to see that continue, but it's around most delicious product. How can we innovate there? How can we make operations more efficient? How do we keep doing value in a way that, even though others copy it, we're always doing something new and better every time, or we're doing things that are really hard to copy, like an emergency pizza, or a you tip, we tip, or a carry-out tips. So as long as we're seeking out the tensions out there in the world for consumers, at the time when we did you tip, we tip, people were really sick of tipping for every single thing post-COVID, right? So if we're studying those tensions and we understand them and we're resolving them better than anyone else, I know we're going to continue to be the #1 brand and continue to grow.
Kate Trumbull, all the questions I have for you. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That was my interview with Domino's CMO Kate Trumbull. So, what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 5 takeaways. My first takeaway is that if your marketing doesn't feel a little risky, then you're not pushing hard enough. Kate talked all about how Domino's is a brand of bold action. In other words, Domino's swings for the fences in all of its innovations. Now, yes, I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, well, of course, Domino's can do that. It is the biggest pizza chain in the world. Something I didn't even mention on this interview is that their marketing budget is $500 million. You could only dream of those kinds of resources. But I still appreciate that Domino's isn't sitting back on its laurels. It's not assuming this is going to be easy. It keeps pushing. And so when Kate said that, I thought that really resonated, this idea of pushing in your marketing so much that you're taking a risk. And if not, then you're not going hard enough. You should always be taking those risks. Another way that Kate put it is that they cut through tension with their marketing. And what that means is that in these periods of volatility and upheaval that we are in right now, Domino's tries to cut through that to get the attention of the customers. A great example of how that has come to pass is back in 2010, when they were doing the new and inspired pizza recipe. At the time, consumers didn't trust institutions. They didn't trust the banks. They didn't trust the major corporations. There were all these bailouts happening. And yet here Domino's comes in, one of these corporations, and says, hey, guess what? We screwed up. Our product is no good. We are sorry. We're going to make it right. That is an example of cutting through that tension. And it really gets people's attention. They notice when you zig where others zag. We're in another period of that right now. And Kate used the other example of the emergency pizza, which is this idea when, the economy is tough and people are trying to save money and look for value offerings. Domino's cut that tension and said, hey, we'll just give you a free pizza when you are in a quote unquote emergency. These are ways that can, again, really make the consumer perk up and say, oh, wow, I see you, Domino's, and I'm going to give you my business. My second takeaway is that social media audiences need content that is surprising or unexpected. So pretty similar to how Domino's takes bold actions in its marketing. In social media, Domino's wants to get you to stop scrolling, and that's by doing something, again, unexpected, something surprising, something that nobody was expecting before. And Kate went into how, Domino's crafts that strategy, and it crafts it uniquely according to each platform. There's one way they do that on Instagram, one way they do that on TikTok. And I loved the way she was talking about the profiles of each person on each of these platforms. She used it in terms of drinking. The person on Instagram is maybe 1 drink in, the person on TikTok maybe 2 drinks in. Point is how do you get their attention? Do something surprising. Because if you spend any amount of time on social media, you know that you are just constantly scrolling. It's just this constant feed. And the things that really grab your attention are the things that you weren't expecting. And that is a brand's goal, is to get you to stop that scroll so you would see their content. My third takeaway is that consumers must be a part of the conversation when you make big changes. So, of course, earlier this month, Domino's rolled out its big brand refresh with these great new colors, a new font, and of course, the first ever jingle that Domino's has had in its company history. And it's funny, and I guess maybe coincidental, that this comes on the heel of what happened to Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel, of course, did a rebrand, a little bit more intensive than what Domino's went through. But you all know what happened with Cracker Barrel and how that went down. And the fact of the matter is that consumers did not like it. They did not feel like it represented what they liked about Cracker Barrel and wanted to see in a Cracker Barrel. Domino's, Kate explained how they do so much research before going into any decision like this. And again, I recognize this is a much lighter touch on the change than what Cracker Barrel was doing. But still, any change you make is going to perhaps upset your most loyal customers. People don't love change. They love the thing that they are nostalgic for, that they're used to. And if you come in and change everything, that can really put them off. So in order to do that, as Kate said, bring the consumer into the conversation. When you're developing whatever change you want to do, ask your consumer what they think of it. Get as much data as you possibly can before pulling the trigger on that, because that way, when you roll it out, your consumers will not be angry with you for doing it. My fourth takeaway is that consumers notice and appreciate even subtle changes to your brand. So in all of these changes that Domino's has just made, the colors, the font, the jingle. This is rolling out to every touch point you can think of. It's on the pizza boxes. It's on storefronts. It's on billboards in Times Square. It is on literally every branding piece of branding you'll see from Domino's for the future. It's going to incorporate those changes. That's a big, big, big effort. But Domino's spares no expense. As Kate said, little things like just the shade of color, the shade of red and blue that they're using make a big difference in how customers perceive your brand. And Kate made that point, is that they want customers to think a thing about Domino's. They want customers to look at Domino's and see them for the sort of quirky, fun, clever brand that they are. And in order to make that happen, you have to change every touch point. Every time somebody looks at Domino's Pizza, thinks about Domino's Pizza, this new branding has to kind of be there to meet the moment. So there are all sorts of subtle ways in which that can happen. But if you put in that extra effort and go for even the smallest little touch points out there, your customers will notice that subtle change and they'll appreciate it. They'll understand how much you take this seriously because you took care of that even tiny little detail. My fifth and final takeaway is that work on your brand is never finished. It was something Kate repeated over and over again, which is that they are a work in progress brand. And remember, Domino's is 65 years old. They started in 1960. They have this incredible history behind them, an incredible heritage, and yet they don't think they're done. They're constantly improving, adapting, and trying to make Domino's better than the version that it was before. It's a great lesson for all of you out there who, your brand might be getting older. You might be contemplating a change. Maybe you need a change. Maybe sales have stagnated. The fact of the matter is you're never done. You've always got to meet the moment, bring your brand into the modern days. Now, that is kind of threading a needle, as I was talking about with Cracker Barrel. There's some real danger and risk to that. But just like Kate said before, if you're not risky, then what are you even doing? Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave feedback. You can also email me at sam.okus@informa.com. Thanks again and talk to you next week.